Welcome to today's episode, where we'll dive into one of the most profound and unsettling questions that has haunted humanity for centuries: the problem of evil. This is not just a theoretical issue, it's one that touches our deepest fears, our greatest doubts, and our most heartfelt cries for understanding. If you've ever wrestled with the question of why there is so much suffering in the world, this conversation might resonate deeply with you. Let's begin by framing what the problem of evil is. At its core, it's the question of how we reconcile the existence of immense pain and suffering in the world with the idea of a benevolent, omnipotent God. If God is all-powerful, why doesn't he stop evil? If God is all-loving, how could he allow such suffering? This is the paradox that has captivated and troubled theologians, philosophers, and seekers for millennia. And let's be honest, this isn't just an abstract thought experiment. The problem of evil hits home in the most personal and painful ways. Think of the unimaginable tragedies we've seen: natural disasters that wipe out entire communities, devastating illnesses that strike children, wars that destroy lives and livelihoods, and the quiet, daily sufferings of people struggling with grief, poverty, or loneliness. Each one of us, at some point, has looked at the world or our own life and asked, why? For many, this question is the strongest argument against the existence of God, and it's easy to see why. The sheer scale of suffering, when paired with the idea of a God who could intervene but doesn't, feels impossible to reconcile. But as we explore this today, I want to acknowledge something deeply important. This isn't just about abstract reasoning. Suffering is real. It's raw. It tears at the fabric of our lives and leaves scars that are not easily healed. To talk about the problem of evil is to walk into the very heart of human pain. It's to sit with the questions that have no easy answers, and to honor the struggles of countless people throughout history and in the world today. Let me give you a few examples to ground this. Imagine a mother watching her child die from a preventable illness in a place where resources are scarce. Imagine someone losing their entire family in a natural disaster, their world crumbling around them in an instant. Think of the millions who've endured the horrors of war. Children who've never known peace, people uprooted from their homes with nothing but fear and uncertainty as their constant companions. These are not hypothetical scenarios. They're happening as we speak, in real lives, in real places. So when people say, how could a loving God allow this? That's not an unreasonable question. It's not an unspiritual question. It's a human question, born of the compassion and the pain that make us who we are. And to pretend that it doesn't matter or to offer shallow answers would be to miss the weight of what's being asked. Yet at the same time, the problem of evil challenges us to go deeper, beyond the surface of the question, and into the heart of what it really means to live, to suffer, and to exist in this world. What is evil? What is suffering? And how do we, as individuals and as a collective, hold these realities within the greater mystery of existence? Now that we've acknowledged the weight of the problem of evil, let's step back and ask, what is the deeper nature of this question? Why does it hold such power over us? And is there a way to approach it that doesn't just provide an answer, but a transformation in how we see the world? At the heart of the problem of evil is a dualistic perspective, a belief that there is a separation between us, the world, and God. We assume there is an external God who is either acting or failing to act. We assume there is an independent world full of suffering. And we assume there is a separate me experiencing pain and asking these questions. But what if these assumptions are illusions? Let's consider a profound idea: the co-emergence of observer and observed. This principle suggests that the world we see and the self that sees it are not two separate things. They arise together like two sides of the same coin within the same field of awareness. In this view, there is no external God watching the suffering of the world from some distant place. There is no independent world existing out there, apart from the consciousness that perceives it. Everything, God, the world, and what we call evil, is one seamless, undivided whole. You might ask, how does this help us understand suffering? Let's unpack it carefully. When we label something as evil, we are imposing a judgment on an event from the perspective of the ego. The ego is the part of us that feels separate, that identifies itself as an individual observer navigating an external world. It categorizes experiences into good and bad, desirable and undesirable, based on how they impact its sense of self. But in the non-dual perspective, the ego's judgments are not ultimate truth. They are part of the play of appearances arising within consciousness. Take a moment to consider this. What if suffering, as painful as it is not a punishment or a flaw in existence, but an integral part of life's unfolding? What if the very act of labeling something as evil is a misunderstanding born from the illusion of separation? When we step beyond the ego's dualistic lens, we begin to see suffering not as a defect in the fabric of reality, but as part of the whole, a whole that includes joy, beauty, and growth alongside pain and loss. Let's look at an example. Imagine a storm that destroys a village. From the perspective of the ego, this is a tragedy, and understandably so. It causes immense pain and loss. But if we step back and view the storm within the larger context of nature, it is not evil. It is simply the movement of forces that sustain life on Earth. The destruction is real, and the suffering is real, but the label evil comes from our human tendency to see ourselves as separate from the whole. When we dissolve this sense of separation, we can hold both the pain and the beauty of existence in a larger, more compassionate embrace. This does not mean we deny suffering or become indifferent to it. On the contrary, recognizing the non-dual nature of reality often deepens our compassion. Why? Because we no longer see suffering as something that happens to others. We see it as arising within the same field of awareness in which we ourselves arise. The boundaries between self and other begin to blur, and we feel a profound connection to all beings. Now let's return to the question of God. If we cling to an anthropomorphic idea of God as a being with free will, who chooses to intervene or not intervene, the problem of evil seems insurmountable. But if we see God not as a being, but as the very ground of being itself, the infinite awareness in which all things arise, then the problem dissolves. God does not allow evil, nor does God prevent it. God is the light in which the storm, the suffering, and the healing all appear. This brings us to a radical realization. The divine freedom we attribute to God is not the freedom to choose or control events. It is the freedom of pure awareness, which is inherently beyond all conditions. So, what does this mean for us here and now as we face the pain and challenges of life? It means we can begin to see suffering not as an obstacle to be eliminated or a problem to be solved, but as an invitation to deepen into the mystery of being. It means we can respond to the world's pain with compassion, not from a place of fear or judgment, but from the recognition that all of it, every joy, every sorrow, is an expression of the same infinite reality. And perhaps most importantly, it means we can let go of the need to intellectually resolve the problem of evil. Instead, we can meet life as it is, with open hearts and quiet minds, trusting that even in the midst of pain, the deeper truth of unity and freedom is always present.